Well, hello, good morning, good morning. It is May the 1st, 2024, and I was basically gone the entire month of April, out and about. I spent some time in Mexico, some time in North Carolina, spent some time in Tennessee, so it was really hard for me to get a good video update out for you guys, but here I am this morning. I'm going to be doing an update on the S&P 500. I'm going to be doing an update on Bitcoin. And I'm also going to be taking a real quick look at USDT. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a look at Tether. Before I get into all of this, as you all know, this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. You're responsible for your own trades, managing your own risk, doing your own research, and this is always just my opinion on the market. So let's go ahead and take a look at things. So on the S&P 500, really, this hasn't changed. So far, we are following the structure pretty much exactly how I had expected that it would. Of course, it went a little bit higher than I expected, but this correction that we're currently in is going pretty well. I would have to say. What I will say, and we've covered this previously. I've got my time cycles on here and all of that because I think time cycles are pretty darn important when it comes to analyzing markets. And so now that we have gone past this last projected pivot point, which I had on that chart for months. This was there right around tax day. I was expecting there to be some kind of a pivot around that area, and you can see I even had this little box here that sort of outlined where I thought price action would likely go, although I did think that it was possible for it to go all the way up here to about 5,400. Didn't quite do that, but we did start to see that rejection. And I'm not going to get into the video that I did several months ago about finding significant tops in the S&P 500, but you may want to go and take a look at that video because we pretty much met that criteria, and we've seen like a 4 to 5% decline in the S&P 500 since that happened. So now here we are on this move up here. This looks corrective, right? So this does not look impulsive. This looks very corrective. We've got some overlap here and on this ABC. So I counted this as an ABC going into wave 1 and then an ABC go down here into wave 2. And then what I would expect wave 3 to be a little bit longer in time and in depth. I'm kind of expecting, we are in the middle of an A, B, C going into wave 3. Wave 3 I'm expecting to terminate somewhere close to about 6,000. But first, as you can see here, based on the chart, if I go down to maybe a 4-hour time frame, it's going to be just a little more clear. I am expecting, and you can see, I was expecting there to be a move up, although I did kind of expect it to go a little bit higher than it did. But, of course, anything can still happen. We do have FOMC. We've got a lot of different things. It's a very news-driven market. It's very it's annoying, but it is what it is. It's possible that we do revisit these highs up here before we take a turn to the downside, and I'm still expecting there to be a move down here to about 4,800, and that may be extended, right? This could go into the beginning of June. It could go out further. This correction may take a little bit more time. So from down here, we might still see another move up that would go into mid-May before we start to see a decline. From a pivot standpoint, our next pivot point isn't going to be all the way out here till about September 26th. So the big question is, are we going to be in a massive consolidation phase for the next few months? It's very possible that that is exactly what happens. So I could be off on the count here, but ultimately I do think we are going to find ourselves down here. It may take longer than I'm expecting to get there, but ultimately things are looking well for continued correction for at least the month of May, maybe even the month of June. Now, once that starts to clean itself out, I would expect we're likely going to see that move back up. And again, looking for a move up here to 5,800, 5,900, somewhere in that area. And that pivot point, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this now. I'm going to copy this guy. I'm going to bring it over here. And our next projected pivot point is going to be approximately September 26th. So let's go ahead and mark that on the calendar. So September 26th so far, these pivot points have worked out very, very well. And I'm going to continue to notate them on the chart as long as they continue to provide fruit. All right, so again, our halfway point is going to be roughly around here on July 17th. So, looking at the halfway point between the two pivots, that would be a good indication that we could have a little bit of a bottom that would be forming on or around that time frame. So this is my view on the S&P 500. Yes, I do believe we're likely going to see new local lows, likely going back to retest the previous all-time high at about 4,800, about 4,820, somewhere in that range, before we do see that move up to, again, about 58 to 5,900. It may extend a little further than that, but ultimately that's where I'm expecting that to land. So I'm not going to get into digging into the count off of this move just quite yet. I'm going to give it some time because, it is still possible that we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're down for 5. So we could be seeing a move down here before we see a corrective move that's a little bit more pronounced. And then we start to see that move down here to 4,800. So, if we're talking about options, this could take time, and this could last a while, right? And it could go deeper, it could go higher. So I like to focus more on the overall trend versus what's going to happen in the next 3 hours, right? I've got my own methods for doing what's going to happen in the next 3 hours. But looking at a 4-hour time frame, a daily time frame, that's not the time frame to be looking at. I'm looking at a much higher time frame where I think things are on a more macro basis versus more looking into the micro movements of the chart. Okay, let's move on into Bitcoin now. So what is Bitcoin doing? Obviously, it's in the middle of a correction. It is possible that we are going to see a bit of a bounce here, and I want to explain why. So first off, I've got this big green box, which is the 236, right? This is the 236 corrective target, which we've just hit. We just tapped that overnight, right? And the next level is going to be the 382. So somewhere between 50 and 57,000, we're likely going to find a significant amount of support in this area. Now, if I look left, yeah, obviously I've got lots of support that should be in this area. We had some resistance here. We had some clustering price action over here. But ultimately, I do think we did hit a top, right? And then from there, right, we've got potential for a WXY. We've got some people on the Discord that were basically outlining that scenario. And, we were talking about some measurements. So let's just put this on here. So if we've got a W and then we've got an X and then, a 3-wave correction down here into a Y, what does that look like in terms of measuring? So let's go ahead and measure it. Dominant pivot high, dominant pivot low, and then let's get our pullback. Where did we land? So let me throw a different template here. This guy. We went to the 1236, which is a good move for a corrective target. If we do see a move down here to the 1618, it's very likely that we are going to see price action come down to about 49,000, 50,000. That's going to be basically, you can see here 48,872. That's roughly the 382, and actually I don't have this quite outlined perfectly. So, again, 48,768. Down in the 50,000 range, if we get there, I'm more than happy to inject more capital. I'm just kind of sitting on my hands in the positions that I've got and just kind of waiting for the time being. If things do look like they're going to take a turn to the downside, I might get into, some short positions to take us down here to this area, because it's very possible that we do hit this zone. And if I try and zoom out just a little bit, what I'll point out here is what I've got is I've got a 1, 2, and then I've got a wave 3. Although I've got a deep 4, it's still possible that that's not what's going to happen. It's possible that something else is going to happen. Let me just explain what that something else might be. Okay, so we've got a good move down here to the 1236. So let's just talk for a moment. Let me just get a different chart on here, okay? Obviously, on the daily, we've seen some rejection here at the 21 EMA, rejection here at the 55 EMA, and we're currently below the 100 EMA. But if we are going to be looking at this from a, let me just go ahead and clear all of this out because I don't want to influence what our thoughts are on this, right? So if I take a look at this from a 1 here and then a 2 here, and then we're on a 3 here and working on the 4 before we go up for a 5. Okay, so let's just talk in terms of this here for a moment. And I do believe that we are going to see Bitcoin hit $100,000. It's probably going to happen sometime, either by the end of this year. It may happen that it takes, going into 2025. Again, we've discussed this in great detail. What I'll say, this wave 2 is an expanded flat, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a 5-wave move down. We've got basically a leading diagonal here, a move up, and then we've got our 5-wave move down, right? So we basically have the makings of an expanded flat here. It didn't go deep. It stayed shallow. So with the fact that this stayed shallow, even though, we did have, a 20% decline there, and then we also had a 21% decline there, how far have we gone down so far here? We've gone down to about 20%. So it's roughly been about the same. This is why I kind of expect we're probably going to get more, because in my opinion, this was a shallow correction. So that would tell me that wave 4 is probably going to be deep, or it's going to be complex. So if this is a complex correction, this is kind of what I would expect to see. So again, we've got this, and if we have a flag that starts to form, which would go all the way through all of May, all of June, and potentially all of July, right? We could be working on a more complex, right? We've got 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 3 waves down to finish an A, B, C, D, E. And if this happens, then again, that's going to be when we're finally going to see that move go up into wave 5. Do we have evidence that that is very possible? Yes, we definitely have, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, a shallow 2, a deep 4 going up for wave 5 into wave 1. And then from wave 2 to wave 3, we've got a 1, 2, 3, deep 4, 5, right? So we've got a 1, shallow 2, 3, deep 4, and then going up for wave 5. So again, big 1, shallow 2, big 3, and again, are we going to get a deep wave 4, or are we just going to get a sideways consolidative wave 4? We're just going to have to wait it out and see what happens. But I do believe that it's very possible that we are going to see something like this happen. Again, I'd be looking for a move down here to about 49,000, 50,000. That would be great. But if we don't get that, what I'm going to be watching for is the formation on my Wave Master indicator. I'm going to be waiting for the formation of the right kind of divergence, especially when we get to wave E. If we do get a wedge, if we do get a triangle, wave E is my favorite type of trade. One of my favorite types, which I shouldn't say my favorite because I've got several that I really do enjoy. But wave E, I love taking a wave E because your risk is clearly defined, your target is clearly defined. If we get this, 100,000 is the target, and if we do get this wave E, and if we start to see this come to fruition, well then your stop loss is going to be right on the other side of wave C. It's a very simple trade strategy. Stop loss on the other side of wave C, and you've got your target up here, and there you go. Worst case scenario, move your stops as we go. Trailing stop, Cardinal has been talking about this on the Discord here frequently. So just watching for that. I think that there's good potential for the wedge to play out. But if it doesn't, if we just continue moving down, I would say 49, 50,000 is probably where we're going to go. And that's like 8, 9,000 from where we're at right now. That's pretty significant. Putting that into perspective, that's another 14% on top of the 20 that we've already made. So if we get that would be a 33% decline. Now, in crypto, that's not out of the ordinary. This is, it's not a market for the weak-handed. And so I'm just sort of waiting to see what happens. A lot of us have been in crypto for a long, long time. And a lot of us, hopefully, were taking some of my advice on buying back here, buying Bitcoin, buying alts, buying Ethereum, and all of that. But one more thing I do want to discuss, and this is important. This is probably more important than anything that I've already mentioned today, and that's the dominance of Tether. I put something out on TradingView, right? I did a post on TradingView like forever ago. I believe it was all the way back here on January of 2023. So that's been almost a year and a half ago. I did an article on TradingView about this. You can go onto my profile. It is still there. And what it was outlining is the potential for a bump and run reversal. It used to be called a bump and run formation, but people didn't like the acronym being BARF, even though that's exactly what the chart is doing, right? But a bump and run reversal, right? We've got a nice trend line here. We'll call this the norm. And then we've got basically a period of time where the trajectory is much more pronounced than what the norm is, right? So we've got, good support here as we go, but then all of a sudden this starts to just incline much steeper than what the norm is. When that broke, I was basically pleading on TradingView that, like, hey, this is likely going to fall, and it's going to fall a significant amount. And I've outlined this level here, 3.75%. You can see here, I've got this outlined all the way back here. We're likely to go back to this area, find a bounce, and then continue down further. And so far, that's basically exactly what has happened. I'm not making this up. You can go back and see all of my history on TradingView where I outline all of this. I'm expecting Tether's dominance to go down to about 2%. Right now, it's about 5.26%. Now, what would happen if we do get that? Well, you're going to see a lot of other things start to move up. You're going to see Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, they're going to start moving up. And that's going to remove dominance from Tether. Tether could still go up a little bit higher, admittedly. It could go up to about 6% from where it's at, maybe 6.25%. To retest this level would be preferred. It doesn't have to. But this is kind of what I was expecting to see happen. You can see this outlined by my red projection that I've got here. Likely is going to fall, find some support here, rebound, and then fall some more, right? So we've got the evidence that is happening so far. So again, I would expect it's possible that Tether dominance goes up a little bit higher. Ultimately, I think it's going to go down to about 2%. Now, when Tether dominance gets down to 2%, I would say that you should probably be starting to secure profits. If you don't already, I would set some alerts on some of these metrics that I'm discussing, because Tether dominance at 2%, that's a significant decline from where it's at today. It's even an even greater decline from where it was all the way up here. So in terms of percentage, that is a 78% decline in Tether's dominance in the crypto market. From where it's at even right now, we're talking another 61% decline in dominance. But let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. Again, Bitcoin dominance, we've been watching this, and this is starting to show up more and more in the world. People are paying more and more attention to this, but I don't think what a lot of people are really paying enough attention to is the fact that what we could be seeing here, right? We could be seeing Bitcoin dominance, again, taking time, going maybe into June, creep up to about 57%. There's going to be a point, and you don't know when it's going to happen. What I will say is if we drill into this right here on the daily, it does look like we could be starting to see another move up. But again, this could take time. But when it starts to move down, I don't think people realize what's going to happen. I think that Bitcoin dominance is probably going to go all the way back down to the 2017 lows. That's when we had like massive retail, all kinds of stuff were happening in the market at the time. I think we are probably going to see something like that. And this is why it's important to recognize these ahead of time and to position yourselves ahead of time, because when it happens very fast. right? If you just take a look at some of these, like from here down to here, that was a 34% decline that occurred over 51 days. So 51 days, yeah, that's almost 2 months. That's a lot of time. But before you realize what's happening, it's almost you almost feel like it's too late. So it's important to position yourself at a good point and be good, feel good about your positioning. Don't over leverage yourself. Heck, don't even use leverage, because what we're about to experience in these markets is ridiculous returns. When the moves start to happen, trade some breakouts. Wait for things to break out before you start to get into leverage positions. But right now, in my opinion, this is just for accumulating spot for longer term, because we're talking about this going into 2025. But also, I do believe that it's very possible and likely that Bitcoin dominance is going to go back down to 30%, and it might even go lower than that, which sounds ridiculous, but it's very possible. I do have another target down here that Bitcoin dominance could go down as far as 27 to 28%. Just imagine what that would look like for altcoins, for Ethereum, for Solana, for Cardano, whatever it is that you trade and you enjoy. Imagine what that would do to your holdings. So position yourselves appropriately. Don't over leverage yourself. Don't oversize yourself, and don't try too hard to predict market movements. And realize that some of these things move in the opposite direction of the markets, like dominance, tether dominance. It should be moving in the opposite direction of what the general market is doing. So if tether dominance starts to move down, like I'm expecting it to at some point here in the near future, all of the other things that are trading against the tether pair are going to be appreciating in value, more than likely almost everything. It just really depends on what market sentiment is, what your social networks are going to be saying about certain things. Crypto is a very speculative space, and it's very algorithmic, and it's all driven by basically retail and whales, because it's very illiquid. As much as we think that it's a very liquid environment, it's really not. When you get down into the meat and potatoes of it, if you take a look at the order books, it's really not all that liquid, because it's really controlled by very few people. So things are going to start moving up once the people that control the space remove some of their sell orders and start to actually enter into a markup phase, because they're the ones that can really mark up the market. It's not you and me. It's the people that really control the ecosystem. So again, Bitcoin dominance, possibly one more high before it starts to significantly decline. If you're taking, again, back a look at Bitcoin versus the dollar here. Again, we've got two scenarios. One of them is we've got WXY. We're already starting to see a little bit of absorption here. It would be great to see us get back above 63 to 64,000. If we can get back up above 63, 64,000, it's possible this correction is done. I don't believe that it's done, but if we get back up here and it looks good, I would say that it's likely that we are going to start to see a move back to those highs. But for now, I think this is probably the more probable solution, which is going to be, we're going to be seeing, a series of threes, 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 3 waves down, before we start to see that move back up to all-time highs. And again, that target for Bitcoin sits currently at $100,000. It could go further, but that's my target for now. That's probably where I'm going to go ahead and just sell all of my Bitcoin, and then I'll just be waiting for the altcoins to do their thing. All right. I've been talking here for about 24 minutes. That's about 20 minutes longer than what I expected to, but I had a lot to discuss. So I hope this was all informative for you. If this video helped you in any way, shape, or form, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, share. Share with your community, share with your friends. If you need access to our Discord, if you need access to our indicator, if you need access to trades, whether they're crypto trades, options day trading, which we've been murdering here recently, you can find all of that information on BitDoctor.org. Feel free to shoot me a message. You can find me on X, Twitter. You can find me also on Discord at any time. Last but not least, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good day, good night, and a great evening. Take care, everyone.